Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NASEO Energy Security Committee call. Letting folks out of the waiting room as we speak. And we will get started here once this slows a little bit. Alrighty. Well, it's looking like it's slowing down. So we'll get started here. Good afternoon, everyone. Sarah Trent with NASEO. Thanks for joining us today for our September Energy Security Committee call, but also kind of the focus of today's call is going to be on state energy program success stories. So we're going to hear from your colleagues in several states. And but before we dive into that, I just wanted to highlight a couple of announcements up front. First off, our all hazards call, which is just for state energy officials, is going to be next week, September 17th. So I sent another invite around. So if you don't have that, feel free to reach out to myself or Campbell, and we can get that forwarded along to you. Another thing kind of in the NASEO sphere is we're hosting our annual meeting in Ben Bolton's backyard of Nashville, Tennessee. So I would encourage you all, if you can make the trip, to join us down there. We're still kind of working on the agenda, but I'm sure we're going to have some energy security resiliency focused topics scattered in there. At least fingers crossed if Ben has anything to do with it. And then finally, I know you've heard a lot from, or you should have heard from me or Campbell in regards to state energy security plan submissions. The deadline, as a reminder, is September 30th at the end of this month. If you have any questions, please reach out to the co-chairs, Ben and Audrey. They're happy to answer questions, as well as myself, Campbell, Megan, Levy from DOE Caesar, and we'll get those wrapped up. I know a lot of people are working on them, and a lot of them are kind of in the governor's hands right now. So it sounds like everyone's kind of on the right path, but happy to answer questions in regards to that. All right. A couple of housekeeping items before I pass it over to Ben and Audrey. First off, we are recording this meeting. NASEO is doing kind of a series of state energy program success stories from each of the different program areas. I know transportation is doing one tomorrow, so tune into that one if you're free. But this is all about energy security today. Beyond that, this meeting is of course open to state and territory energy offices, as well as our affiliate partners. So thanks all for joining on that front. And then we will be holding questions after each speaker. We're going to be hearing from Iowa, North Carolina, as well as Wisconsin. So again, holding questions till after each speaker. And Ben and Audrey are going to moderate that conversation. But feel free to utilize the chat, throw your hand up using one of these features, or feel free to come off mute if you have a question during that time. And then for folks that maybe aren't as familiar with what SEP is, State Energy Program, or SEP, you're going to be kind of hearing it. Quick acronym is the bipartisan supported program. It's authorized by Congress and is provided via formula funding directly to state energy offices. And enables governors to strategically advance their energy security and energy policy priorities, as well as supporting the national energy goals set forth by Congress and the administration. So you're going to hear today from a couple of states on kind of how they've kind of weaved in SEP and energy security and resilience. Have some really interesting projects. These forums are all about best practice sharing and peer-to-peer exchange. So keep your ears open for your colleagues here. But with that, I'll pass it over to, well, first I want to introduce Ben. I think a lot of people know Ben, but he's from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, as well as Audrey Alstrom, our committee co-chairs from the Alaska Energy Authority, to say hello. And Audrey, I know you're going to kick us off with Carrie here first.
Great. Thanks, Sarah, and welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce our first presenter. Carrie Heinrich is the Energy Security Lead for the Wisconsin Energy Office. Carrie is also part of the NASEO Energy Security Committee leadership and is a great resource for folks on the line. She will be presenting on the Refueling Readiness Program. Carrie, I'm going to pass it off to you now.
Awesome. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to share my slides. And yeah, so I'm going to talk today about refueling readiness, which a lot of folks have heard about in the past. And it's, it's in its fourth round. So you've probably heard us tout it, but now you're going to get some details on the program itself, the design, and in the hopes that maybe you will also produce something similar, because it's a really important aspect of fuel planning for your state. So something to consider. So. All right, so I'm Carrie Heinrich. I'm the Energy Security Lead for Wisconsin. I'm within the Office of Energy Innovation at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, and here we go. So in 2018, Wisconsin Emergency Management hosted a 3-day exercise called Dark Sky. It modeled a long-term power outage and associated fuel shortages. There were over 1,600 participants from 240 different agencies and departments, and so local, county, state, federal, and private sector actors. And so for investor-owned utilities, municipal electric utilities, water utilities, healthcare, law enforcement, et cetera. So it really helped to exercise the newly created petroleum shortage contingency plan, and it identified several specific recommendations to improve resilience planning, like increasing the deployment of fueling infrastructure available during outages. So the credit, however, is due to the state of Oregon. So shout out to Max and Tracy if you're on the call for coming up with the idea and identifying fuel points of distribution throughout the state. So the ultimate goal of refueling readiness is to ensure petroleum product supply chain operations within the state. And to do so, the OEI uses a portion of our SEP funds, so State Energy Program formula funding, to target priority areas within distinct eligibility requirements and incentive offerings. Here we go. So more specifically, our strategic objectives have been to support local energy emergency planning and response efforts during a power outage, and expand the work of previous rounds of grant funding by placing priority areas and priority on facilities in counties that have not received refueling readiness grants in previous rounds. We also want to expand infrastructure in urban areas specifically, and investing in bulk storage infrastructure throughout Wisconsin. So the table on the right reflects the priority areas of our last round. So there's 51 counties and 3 urban areas noted that hadn't previously been awarded. So tribal nations within each of those priority areas were encouraged to apply as well. And note that the highlighted areas were funded in the last round. All right, program eligibility. This program is offered to 3 types of applicants. Sorry, I can't see folks. So if you're, just speak up if you can't hear me or have a question or something's going on funky. So 3 types of applicants: so local government owned highway shops that provide petroleum distribution for government use, private or local government owned facilities, with both unleaded and diesel fuel pumps, or privately owned bulk storage facilities. So the beneficiaries are local governments served by those storage tanks, and then the community at large for bulk storage distribution. Under the conditions of the grant agreement and the generator contingency plan, all awardees must affirm or forge relationships with their local emergency management agency. And eligible activities include the labor and materials needed to hook up the generator. So the transfer switch, a tap or a connector box, and then the wiring or other supplies needed to facilitate the hookup. The physical generator has not been eligible for funding in recent rounds. We just ran into troubles with air quality and what have you. So as it relates to SEP funding. So the physical generator not allowed, but labor to facilitate the project, including incorporating a generator contingency plan, is also eligible for funding. And we provide up to $10,000 for a typical highway shop and convenience stores, and up to $25,000 for bulk storage facilities. There has been no cost match required. And here's some examples of a small transfer switch and connector boxes. So very basic materials, but do great deeds when the power is out to connect quickly to a generator. Here's the timeline from the last round. We utilized a waitlist process and went into 2 waves of waitlists. This helped encourage those priority areas to the applicants within those to submit as soon as they were ready, but also leave the door open for those who were ready to go and wanted to submit, and they still met our strategic objectives, but not necessarily in the priority area of the state. We did fund a couple of those waitlisted projects, with one receiving the balance remaining on our $150,000 budget for round 4. Applications were reviewed on a rolling basis. Priority projects were pushed through to a grant agreement, and those others were placed on a wait list until that date of waitlist review. And then once a grant agreement was in place, we allowed a 6-month grant agreement term to complete the project and submit the paperwork. Okay, so again, they had to be in a priority area. Applicants had to have a project site that was available 24/7 or could be, and have ample storage for diesel and gasoline. No outstanding tax warrants or delinquencies. Be willing to share the project site details with various emergency management entities, state, local, federal. And then select an electrical contractor and or vendor and provide a copy of that project quote with their application. This again expedited that 6-month grant agreement process and assured that applicants were ready to go when their project was approved. So that program design, included those eligibility requirements and strategic priorities. It allowed us to accept applications on a sort of prescriptive first come, first serve manner without seeking commission approval on every project. So it was basically under these conditions, an applicant was eligible, and allowed us to move forward quickly and efficiently. And despite that, there's always the federal requirements. So NEPA, BABA, and Davis-Bacon. For NEPA, and this might be different in the future rounds, but OEI worked with our officer, DOE NEPA officer, to obtain a programmatic determination that specified the activities, within specific parameters. So we were limiting to retrofitting inside the building and allowed for no ground disturbance initially. We then followed up and got a revised CX categorical exclusion that included retrofitting existing parts of the building and to set up some specific parameters for ground disturbance, like a concrete pad or something in the event that they want to drop a generator in the future. But no generator allowed. And then, just little like running conduits, that sort of thing. So I really encourage seeking a programmatic CX that really expedited things once we had projects up and or moving through our system. And we didn't have any projects that fell outside of those parameters, but if they did, they would have to seek their own NEPA determination. For Buy America, for these small projects, the small projects waiver may apply in the future. At the time, it was still under review and wasn't approved on this last round. But OEI otherwise supported the projects by performing market research on transfer switches and created a list of eligible transfer switches, which is still on our website. And if we do a future round, we'll renew or refresh that market research if we need to. And then Davis-Bacon is also likely required for projects under SEP flow-down terms, assuming the projects exceed the $2,000 threshold. All right, outreach is really critical to bringing awareness to the priority areas and give everyone a shot at program funding. So, you can imagine some counties aren't really as versed in their own fuel planning. So we really wanted to promote the opportunity to everyone. And we had a pretty good runway to launching the program while we conducted market research for BABA and then awaiting our NEPA determination. So what we did was we presented to county and tribal emergency managers during their regional meetings. And then during a Wisconsin Fuel and Retail Association event, we conducted a presentation during that to promote it to bulk fuel suppliers and to C-stores or convenience stores in the state. And then did an email campaign to provide a flyer of, just the general lowdown of program details. And then last, after the program launched, we hosted a webinar to walk through the program and all of the requirements. And then we set up a FAQ process for applicants to ask questions during the solicitation period. So over the 4 rounds, we've had nearly $500,000 in projects. This last round was $150,000 for 13 projects across 10 counties, including 6 county highway shops and 7 petroleum bulk storage facilities. But we've covered 46 projects in 27 counties, so over a third of the state. And we also, as a result of this, got generator contingency plans in place and relationships secured between the fueling site and the county manager. So those are really critical pieces to ensuring contingency planning for fuel during an outage. Our contingency plan and our grant agreement also really locked in the sort of requirement of having a obligated site for emergency response for a period of 10 years. And then during onboarding, we briefed awardees on of that requirement, and it really locked in all the process of developing that generator contingency plan and working through it with or at each facility. So I'm going to drop these in the chat, but these are some of the resources in the event you're interested in pursuing a program. I don't have a slide on this, but I also wanted to share an example of refueling in action. So last March, we had a major ice storm come through the area, and it really swept the Midwest and delivered snow, ice, rain. We had almost upwards of ½ an inch of ice in some areas, and outages of over 190,000 customers over several days. It included the entire tribal community and entire tribal community in northern Wisconsin. And they remained without power into early April, so over several days. But we had a grant funded transfer switch at their community's only gas station, and it helped expedite the response and recovery efforts for them. That's it, unless there's some questions.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions from the group?
Thanks, Abby.
Not hearing any, but I do have a question. Let's Carrie. With the proven success of this program, I'm actually a little bit more interested in taking notes. Maybe we over here in Alaska can replicate something similar. But has there been any interest from other states to replicate the program, or even thoughts to expand it?
Yeah. So, obviously Oregon is really interested in having their own fuel points of distribution and have some funding approved from legislation or the legislature to do so. But this spring's ice storm, really resulted in my office and the Michigan office collaborating on a similar program for Michigan. So we worked together on all of the details of the program, and so that Alex could present the program concept to members of its legislature. I don't know if Alex is on, but this one, I've had a lot of states inquire about it in the past, and it's one of our greatest achievements to be able to have this system in place and a map of all of those sites. So I really encourage you to reach out if you are interested and want to host your own.
That's scary. Looks like Kenny has his hand up. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the presentation, Carrie. This is a really cool program. So you mentioned that you did outreach with local emergency managers, and there's this great data sharing agreement, for the selected sites. But what was there any kind of engagement with local emergency managers for the selection or prioritization of sites within their counties, as opposed to saying these are our prioritized counties, anything in the county?
Yes. So note that, so this is the list of the 72 counties. These are the priority areas. And the reason is because the previous rounds covered the other counties, basically. And we may have had urban areas that had already gotten a grant, but it's it's an urban area that may be covering 2 million people. So having more than one site is perfectly okay. But generally speaking, the outreach entailed advising county managers to if they don't have their own fueling site, their own county highway shop, to forge an agreement or a memorandum of understanding with a local convenience store owner to identify that site as their fueling site, and then encourage them to pursue the grant program together. And then we targeted bulk stations that are basically along the interstate, and to make sure that we could get fuel moving from place to place. But yes, it really comes down to, does the county have a shop? Do they have a fuel agreement in place? And should they be thinking about, if they don't, they certainly should consider it, having a long-term contract. And then, to identify an opportunity, if needed, to forge a transfer switch. So I should note also that just one piece is that, there is an opportunity to use battery backup, like someone rolls in a fire truck or something to power the system. So there are opportunities beyond the generator too, to actually power these transfer switches. So thanks, Kenny.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions for Carrie before I hand it off to Ben? Not hearing any. Go ahead, Ben.
All right, thanks, Audrey, and thank you, Carrie, for. I always like hearing about this program because I think it's one that you can do a little bit of investment and get some periodic results over time. And readiness is not prepared in a day. Readiness is prepared in years and decades. And one of those things that I will add is for folks that might be interested in a backup generator, but y'all can't do it, they should check with their local EMA about mitigation grants. But they're kind of in a flux right now, as a lot of FEMA programs are. But generally speaking, for the public sector, critical facilities can often get a backup generator through that process and through mitigation grants. So that's something that I think since we haven't been able to do your readiness program, we have been pointing people to, well, go get a backup generator. That's where we're starting. But I think that's a really great program that other states can do, and look forward to seeing its continued success also, and good metrics to help other folks go, oh, well, look at the results. They've gotten them. Same with Oregon, of course, hearing about their program again, couldn't hurt either. So next, we have Abby Christopherson from Iowa, who's going to tell us about cybersecurity TA, technical assistance for rural electric co-ops. And I think this is another great program that I'm excited to hear more about it. So Abby, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So let me figure out how to share screen, and then we will get started. That's not the right one. We're just going to share our entire screen. This is going to be fun. There we go. So I'm going to, are you guys able to see this?
Yeah, we can
generally? See it. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to talk obviously about the cybersecurity planning for rural electric cooperatives, as well as kind of how we got here with multiple other energy security related projects funded through the state energy program. So our journey really started in 2019, where we funded a solar crate, as you can see on the screen. And then we also funded, I know I'm talking initially or primarily about the rural electric cooperatives, but we also did fund our municipal utilities to do a resilience assessment and hazard mitigation plan. So I didn't want to get that lost in the message here. As part of state energy program, we did do a mobile microgrid through the Iowa State University to convene stakeholders, and really briefly, they added a small wind generator and controls for interconnection and production metering onto an existing microgrid. And the picture on the screen shows two small little microgrids on a trailer. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about a solar trailer. So this is kind of sets the stage of, this is 2020 and we're now going to go into 2025 as this technology advances. But without further ado, talking about the electric cooperative cybersecurity planning, we funded $260,000 to the association at the state level to facilitate vulnerability assessments. And they actually went through and did 29 separate rural electric cooperative individual vulnerability assessments to focus on their particular critical infrastructure, because in each service area that can be different. And then they also performed 34 incident response tabletop exercises. The number of co-ops that participated varied based on the activity. So they ran individually for the tabletop so that they could work for focusing again on the critical infrastructure within their area. They also focused on a data breach for employees, and the personal data was sold on the dark web, and it was from a keylogger on the HR director's computer. That kind of just is a fun fact of what scenario they ran. The vulnerability assessment that followed a lot of the framework that was laid out by the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And they had an overall goal of defining different roles and responsibilities, the different severity of the incidents, raising awareness of the different cybersecurity threats, and ultimately looking into developing incident response plans. So that was kind of the ultimate goal of the tabletop exercises. And this was back in 2020. So we now then funded a phase 2 of this program. So following the first one, where we kind of got a nice framework, very initial conversations, we then gave them more funding to do even more in-depth work. So they prepared specific incident response plans, as you know, I kind of alluded to as the goal for the training or the tabletop exercise. And then they also prepared different cybersecurity policies for some of the their members in the electric cooperatives. There was also 4 third-party service provider vendor risk management assessments that they went through and identified common third-party service providers across the different electric cooperatives across the state. And then they did do that risk management assessment at that local level. So then they also provided tests of disaster recovery plans, risk assessments, penetration tests, and then they also identified some cool new cyber risks and developed mitigation plans specifically for those. They also provided a cybersecurity toolkit that laid out a lot of capabilities, how to lay out policy development, understanding of smart grids, kind of just a whole host of information sharing so that electric cooperative members could access information even if they weren't a part of the 18 that were receiving direct TA for the other types of or other aspects of the project. They also reviewed the cyber insurance, which was super interesting, and they actually found that that was an area that a lot of electric cooperatives found that they want more investigation into that in the future. And they also did another 40 tabletop exercises, but this one was focused on a security breach of SCADA, operating equipment, and resulted in the loss of control of the electric system. So a little bit more complicated, but that was kind of the overview of the electric cooperative cybersecurity planning. But since then, we've also jumped over more recently. This is the most recent project that we've done, is just over about 6 months, and we awarded a little under $100,000 for the purchase of 3 power trailers with battery, solar array, inverter, light pole, and additional accessories, as well as cell phone charging lockers. And you can see on the right side, I have some videos. I was just there 2 weeks ago when they got them delivered, and it's super nifty equipment. So I've got some more pictures down here too. They also had to train 9 staff on.
I was planning on going to Energy Week on Tuesday.
They trained 9 staff on receiving training for the operations and maintenance of the equipment. So at least 3 from each location. And this was with Davis County Community School District, City of Roland, and City of Kelowna. And they plan to use them in community events and for some rural emergency response when it's not like necessarily an energy emergency situation. So that's kind of what we've gotten done. Now going forward, we're working on a local resilience toolkit with the Iowa State University for really working on a 5 community resilience planning cohort. And so they sent out letters to 10 different or 30 communities, and then 10 actually said, yes, we're interested. So then while we say that their goal was 5, they actually chose 6. And the toolkit has been produced with 12 chapters, but now they're working to do a year-long cohort. So, and they're also like running through the worksheets so that then they can kind of better specialize them on the right information. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we've done thus far. And I will stop sharing screen. There we go. And take questions.
Go ahead, Joel.
Hey, Abby, Joel with North Carolina. And actually my next presentation I'm going to give is about the similar kind of solar microgrid. But on your trailers, your solar trailers, did you guys have to ensure BABA and Davis Bacon compliance on the construction of those?
So because they're mobile, we
Yeah.
kind of assumed not, because
Yeah.
BABA applies to infrastructure, and infrastructure is
right.
considering it being somewhat permanently placed. And there wasn't, like, there's no ground disturbance. So it was actually pretty easy to get federal requirements wise.
Yeah. So that's interesting. In Carrie's discussion, I actually that spurred that thought. So I actually don't know that. I don't know how far along we are in ensuring compliance with those statutes. So that got me thinking. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we had to do quite a bit of digging on that too, to make sure.
So Sarah asked if the toolkits are publicly available. She beat me to the punch.
So they are not yet publicly available, primarily because we're waiting until the cohorts are done so that we can run through all of that information with the local folks working through the toolkit. So once that is completed, and they'll have probably some revisions, so that will then be made publicly available.
Well, please come back when that with that announcement when those are ready to release and stuff, because that could be something good, especially for NASEO and NRECA, the National Utility Co-op Association. That would be both for to get the word out to other states that you've already done the work. So here you go.
Yes.
So one of the other questions is, do we have any other questions from the crowd? I've got a few more. If not, while they're thinking, do the local plans that you're talking about, their incident response plans, do those feed up into your energy security plan in any shape, form, or fashion?
Yes. So as the rural electric cooperatives join in on local hazard mitigation planning, and then the local hazard mitigation stacks into state hazard mitigation, and then state hazard mitigation is directly involved with the state energy security plan. However, I think that there could be more work done, and I think that's something that was pretty clear out of the ACES workshop, is to bring in more folks that have already done the work, to make sure that our energy security plan is as detailed as possible to kind of account for all the funding we've already provided.
That's right. And remind people what ACES is. What's
Assessment of capabilities and energy security.
Yeah, and they knew y'all had done that. I know Louisiana's done it and a few other states as well. That it's a good process, clearly, to go through and sort of guide you where you. A good way to take a snapshot where you are, as well as figure out a little better where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Absolutely. It was great to have NASEO and DOE Caesar out to help with that.
So were there any other cybersecurity programs y'all were considering doing with them? Like, is there going to be a phase 3 someday?
We are fully open to a phase 3. I think it's going to be up to the rural electric cooperatives to give us a concept paper. That's kind of how we work with a lot of our programs anyway. However, we did just fund or launch a program specifically focusing on energy security as one of the topic areas. I didn't talk about it today because we don't know what projects are selected yet, but we do have 7 really great applications, and it was $1.8 million. So we'll see what comes of that, and there's going to be more opportunities in the future.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear more about it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Audrey for our next speaker.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Abby. I enjoyed hearing about cybersecurity that you're working on. Our third and final presenter is Joel Porter. He's the Energy Security Manager for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And Joel will be presenting on their Clean Energy Microgrid Initiative to boost disaster resilience. I'm handing it off to Joel.
Yeah, let me just share my screen real quick. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So today I'm going to be sharing about our Western Carolina Resilience Project, which focuses primarily on microgrids. Can everybody see?
Yeah, we could see, but you might want to switch the display settings while we're viewing the presenter. I'm unsure.
Sorry about that. 1 second. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, no problem. So we are installing up to 25 fixed microgrids along with 2 mobile microgrids across the western part of our state following the damage of Hurricane Helene. And we don't exactly know what the mix of these microgrid projects are going to be. We know we're going to have 2 of the mobile units, and which they call bees, and we will have 2 hives, which are kind of larger mobile microgrids that come with supplies, and they supply the bees, and I'll get into that later because I know that's a strange concept. And then the larger fixed microgrids can be any mix of what's shown here on this screen, the 5 to 20, 20 to 50, or 50 to 100 kilowatt solars with a variety of range of battery storage. This is what is considered a hub. And I'm sorry, I think I actually skipped a slide. Let me go back. Yeah, sorry. So first of all, we're doing this project in conjunction with the Footprint Project, a nonprofit based out of Louisiana. They've been doing storm cleanup and disaster mitigation for a while, primarily in Louisiana, and then in Helene they came up. Ed, shout out to Ed and the other Louisiana folks on the call. We're also working with the regional Land of Sky Council, which is one of the regional council of governments, or COG. It's a $5 million project funded through SEP. And again, it will be up to 25 fixed microgrids, 2 beehives, and 2 bees. And the bees can do a variety of things. They're mobile, and essentially, which I'll get to a picture of this later, but they're solar panels that have been put on the back of like a horse trailer. And they can carry a variety of things, whether it's batteries, so you can deploy, the smaller home generation batteries that or up to a Tesla Powerwall. It could carry water purification technology, or small coolers and refrigerators, that sort of things. And those are all deployed from these 2 the 2 hives, which I mentioned earlier here. And one hive will be fixed out in the west, another in the east. So depending on the incident and the geographic location of the incident, these guys over here on the left side of the screen will be ready to go. These are the bees, excuse me. Here's another picture of the bee, which is with the panels fully deployed. And all of these are AI generated because they've not yet been constructed. This is kind of where the concept came from. This was during a storm down in Louisiana, where they took a larger horse trailer and put the panels on top. and all done by footprint. This is a poor rendering, but I got it from Footprint. So essentially it could carry these types of batteries or the larger power walls, anything in between. And those can be roaming around, whether that's, a home healthcare provider taking those in after a hurricane to a elderly center or community center where you have an at-risk population, and you need power immediately, and so there's a simple solution. What I hadn't considered is the BABA aspect of the fixed microgrids. So I'm going to have to take that back up to leadership and say, hey, we need to make sure that we're all in compliance, because I don't think that's crossed their desk yet, but because we're still fairly early on in the process, but they're moving rather rapidly. And this isn't my primary project. In fact, it's not a project I was on at all. I was just asked to give a speech on it. So forgive me if I don't have some answers to any questions that have arisen. So any questions? Happy to try to field them. Thanks.
Thanks, Joel. Do we have any questions from the group for Joel and the beehives?
Good band name.
Hey, oh, sorry, Ben. Yeah, this is Chris from Minnesota. Love the idea, love the bee concept as well as a former Navy Seabee. It's awesome. I was just wondering, and I know you may not be able to ask or speak to this specifically because you haven't been that involved in the project, but I would be curious to know what kind of guarantees or length of guarantees for service contracts for maintaining this stuff the state was able to get from Footprint. I'm just thinking, what happens if a couple of years from now when they're actually busted out and you need them and the component isn't working, do they have they'll be there within X amount of time to fix problems and things? Thanks. Oh, you're on mute, Joe.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question because it's not my primary. I'm on 401(d) and energy security stuff. So I'm only looped into this stuff from the resilience aspect, but it's a good question. I don't know the answer.
Any other questions for the group? But maybe while folks are thinking about questions, I do have one, and since everybody's thinking about their state energy security plans and making sure those are turned in on time before the end of the month, Joel, your project is a great example of a risk mitigation activity identified in your SASP being deployed. Can you share how you leveraged your state energy security plan to aid in the development or deployment of the project?
Sorry. It was actually the other way around. So I think that, North Carolina has had microgrids for a while now, and especially in Helene, seeing the success of some of our Western communities that actually had those microgrids in place prior to or immediately following Helene, excuse me. That's what really spurred the creation of this project. And it's what spurred us to include it in the security plan. One community in particular, Hot Springs, North Carolina, was up within hours after Helene hit, and took out the rest of the grid, the rest of the city, and that microgrid was back. So it was more not the plan spurring this project, it was that project more spurring the plan.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Any other questions from the group? Do you have any other information or like ideas on how your department might work with local communities, utilities, emergency managers on O&M for such a project?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I called Footprint earlier today to get some additional background information about the project. And we started talking about that, and they've actually done a lot of that footwork themselves, and they've gone around to all of the counties in the West and spoken with the county's resilience officer, whatever title you want to give them, to figure out where those places are. And they've also given a lot of information out to these communities about these projects to see if they want them in their backyards. So they've actually collected that information, and I've been planning on doing a statewide survey to figure out, where those critical pieces of infrastructure are. So they've done that work for me. Essentially, it was great to find that out, and he's been willing to share that data with me. It was kind of a pleasant surprise, to be honest with you. But in terms of citing and ensuring, the benefit to communities, that work is being done by the project manager. So I don't have much insight into it, except to say that, we've been actively promoting the project across the western part of the state, and they all know about it because they have such a need in the wake of the storm. So they've gotten a lot of applications for these units.
Thank you, Joel. I'm just here up here on the last one, trying to figure out how something like that might work here as well, but man, I think we'd have to think of something a little different.
Well, I'm happy to connect offline and put you in touch with the projects manager who's overseeing it. That's Star, who's in our leadership in our office, and I'm sure she's got all of those answers for you. But yeah,
Okay.
happy to.
Yep, that would be helpful. Do we have any other questions for Joel? If not, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and we're just about on we're actually on time. I'm going to pass it off to Sarah.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Audrey. Appreciate that, Joel, Abby, and Carrie. Huge shout out to you guys. I know. Always appreciate you guys kind of jumping on and sharing some stories. Just listening to each of those kind of respective programs and activities, you can really kind of just see the flexibility of SCP kind of shine through. And please do keep us posted. I know some of those projects were in the works, and still have many legs to go. A couple things before we just end the call. I put it in the chat, but Campbell and I worked on an SAP success story. This is something that David Terry and team have been utilizing to kind of show all the great work that you all have done. So just want to throw that in the chat. Feel free to share amongst, or glean some information. I know some of those stories were covered today, but some of them might be new. Beyond that, again, we are recording this, so we're going to share this as well as the slides with the Energy Security Committee. And I think that's it for me. I see some things in the chat. Oh, good call, Ben. Another announcement I forgot to mention in regards to cybersecurity and our partners at NARUC, and another event in Nashville, funny enough. NARUC's going to have their cybersecurity training for utility commissioners. That's the title. It's really open to all state energy officials. I've attended. I know Ed and others, and Ben, and many others have attended. They kind of jump locations. So it's in Tennessee this year, and don't have enough great things to say about it, especially if you kind of miss ciphers in May. This is a great event that kind of really focuses in on kind of what state energy officials' roles are, and a lot of good stuff. Oh, and Ed is attending this year. I think we might try to send Campbell. We'll see. Anyway, appreciate you throwing that in the chat. And Joel just threw some other information in the chat. And with that, we'll end the call there. I appreciate everyone's time today, and we'll see the state folks for the All Hazards Call next week, and then see everyone else next month.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.